Number four is my favorite heavy metal band, Iron Maiden. Like, yes, I just got into these guys last year. This is probably the biggest phase I've ever been in. Now they kind of led the new wave of British heavy metal movement, which started in the um, late 70s, but continued into the 80s. And while they weren't the first band of the movement, they were definitely the biggest. Um, they took a lot from Judas Priest with that power metal sound, and they kind of just took that sound and made it faster and more epic and really more energizing. I mean, Iron Maiden is another all-star band, even though a lot of the members are highly underrated. Like Dave Murray and Adrian Smith are one of the greatest guitar duos I've ever heard. But they don't really get enough credit. But the Maiden fans do give them credit, so that's good. And then you have Nico McBrain, who is one of my favorite drummers. And he's not a traditional drummer. He's a very almost progressive, but just kind of a little more jazzy. But he like puts it into metal, and it's a signature sound that they've always had. And then you have Steve Harris, who founded the band and is the most crucial member by far. When I think of bass players, I think of Steve Harris. Um, his right hand is insanely fast, and he created this like gallop, like ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. In pretty much all of their songs, you hear that gallop that is just so cool, and it's like it pumps you up, and you just get so ready to like jump around and stuff. I don't know. And then Bruce Dickinson is he might be my favorite singer. He's like Rob Halford in the sense that he could sing pretty low, mid range, and then get really, really high. But he was more of like I don't want to say screamer. He does have some great screams, but uh, just I guess it's a yeller. I guess that's what he is. He like yells the words, and I can't do it right now, but it's really, really fun to listen to. The Number of the Beast is definitely an album to start off with. Nico McBrain doesn't drum on that album. That's Clive Burr, who's pretty good, but it's still such a classic album. And if you're into songs, the title track, "The Number of the Beast," is great. "Run to the Hills," "Hallowed Be Thy Name." And if you want stuff from other albums, try "The Trooper," or if you want to listen to a really long song, "Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner." That's a 13-minute song. Yeah, it's pretty long. Okay, so number 3 is The Who. Now, I discovered The Who a little earlier than Iron Maiden and Yes, but not too much. I think the first song I heard by them was My Generation. And The Who started out as, honestly, an R&B band. Like, they did a lot of covers of R&B artists like James Brown. Then they eventually got to a punkier sound, and then they started doing rock operas, which are, rock opera albums. Like, there would be an album that would tell a story. It'd be a concept album. And then they got a little more, they kind of went with the time. When it got to the 80s, they kind of changed their sound, very 80s sound. Uh, and so, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So the band Roger Daltrey is, I think, a pretty underrated singer. I mean, he's up there for like frontman in like every list I see, but you don't really talk about his vocals a lot, and I feel like that's an underrated aspect of the band is Roger's vocals. He is just a strong, powerful force that it the Who is almost as epic as Maiden. They maybe even more. I don't know. They're not metal, but they're still really epic. And then Pete Townsend, if you've ever seen a guitarist do this on stage or smash their guitar, Pete invented both of those things. This is called the windmill, by the way. And Pete had a very punk sound in his playing. He was more of a rhythm guitarist. He had some great solos in a few songs, but he was more of the rhythm of the band. He kind of worked as the bassist of the band, because the bassist should be the rhythm, but in this case, John Entwistle kind of acted as the lead guitarist. I mean, there's a lot of bass solos in their songs. Like, My Generation has a bass solo. I don't know if The Real Me has a bass solo, but you could definitely hear it. Sadly, he passed away in 2002. Rest in peace. As did the drummer, who is my favorite drummer in the world, Keith Moon. I can't think of a drummer more insane or wild than Keith Moon. When you watch him play, he is having so much fun, and he is going nuts. And at the time, it was unbelievable. So we're talking about the 60s when they started. But the thing is, he's actually pretty clean. Like, he's not sloppy when he plays. And his fills are really, really distinct and fast, but also just unimaginable. Like, unless you've heard of The Who before, you can't really think of why a person would do that kind of fill. But then it became a staple in pretty much any song of theirs. If you want to listen to a good album by them, listen to Tommy. That is a concept album, and that's an absolute masterpiece. If you're not into concept albums, though, and you just want to hear an album, try Who's Next, because that has a lot of great hits on it. Like Baba O'Riley or Won't Get Fooled Again. Those are two great songs to listen to. Also, if you want some simpler stuff, listen to the song My Generation, or The Kids Are Alright, or Substitute. Those are really good songs.